A warm welcome back to the channel. In this Beroean Pickets interview, I will be talking to Sonia, who, if you remember, in part 1, I introduced her as being a long-time friend of Beroean Picket member Sabine. Sonia doesn't identify with being a Christian, but wanted to be involved in the travels of Eric and Wendy when they went over to Europe last year. And if you've been following these interviews, you'll remember that certain people brought out that the behaviour of Eric and Wendy was quite shocking. What has disturbed me the most about the way that Sonia was treated, especially by Wendy, is that Sonia is not a Christian, but wanted to see how Beroean Pickets went about their ministry. Sonia has explained that she will never ever become a Christian because of the way Wendy treated her and what she did to her when they were over in Germany, Switzerland last year. Sonia has been very brave to come on record as a non-Christian to talk about her experiences and what she saw as a result of Eric and Wendy's behaviour, two of the members of the then Beroean Pickets Bible study group. I think for me, the fact that the whole ethos, supposedly, of Beroean Pickets is that they travel to gain new members to the Christ. So, as you can imagine, I feel that that is really a contradiction based on what Sonia has explained in part 1 of her interview. We're now going to go into part 2 of this interview with her, and Sonia does a deep dive into her experiences even further and what she observed in Eric and Wendy as so-called born-again Christians. Sonia also has some really good practical advice from a health coaching background in how people waking up from the organisation of Jehovah's Witnesses and anybody else that may stumble into the Beroean Pickets channel can actually use caution before they decide whether to join or not. She gives practical advice on mental health issues and how mental health and religious trauma can impact an individual should they experience the kind of treatment that everybody else in the Beroean Picket community has experienced at the hands of Eric and Wendy. Regardless of the fact that they carry on their channel as though nothing has ever happened, and the fact that they refuse to take down the video concerning Hannes, a deceased brother that took his life while he was a member of the Beroean Pickets Bible study group in South America, and the fact that his sister Claudia was interviewed by me and was quite clearly very, very distraught and upset that, in her words, Eric's video had perpetrated lies about her brother, and he has still kept that video up. So, you know, this is very, very disturbing because they carry on, him and Wendy, on the Beroean Voices channel as though they love God and they want to bring people to Christ, and Christ in his many various roles and how we can learn from him and all this. Not that I've actually watched the videos, but this is what I hear people talking about, and to be honest, it makes my stomach turn. I just want to say that I am utterly and thoroughly disgusted with Eric and Wendy's treatment of these beautiful people in Europe, and have no accountability, do not even want to say that they're sorry for their behaviour, which to me is really all the hallmarks of narcissism. And I'm going to say I really don't care at this point in time. And they have their followers. I believe that Beroean Pickets is a cult by definition of the way that they behave and by the way that other people who I've interviewed have explained their experiences, and of course my own experiences in the group for at least 6 months. I saw and witnessed many maladaptive behaviours, which I found quite disturbing. As always, your comments are welcome, but respect, understanding and sensitivity will be appreciated at all times. Thank you for your cooperation.
Eric is someone who, most important thing for him is being right all the time. He's very intellectual. I mean, I'm sure most of you listening have probably read his book or his books. And he sure does a brilliant job at picking out these intellectual things and doctrines and stuff. But he does love being right. And that is very important to him. And he uses also very intellectual language. Yeah. Another thing I think is being mentioned that Sabine, it was alleged that she called Lutz a son of the devil. That is not correct. She did not say that. And
thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry?
Thank you for clarifying. Thank you for confirming that again as well. So you're the second person that's done that. So yeah, so obviously there's, you know, witnesses and including yourself. So Eric needs to just remove that comment because it's an outright lie. Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, well, other observations, I've already mentioned, I come from a holistic health background, and I'm also very passionate about mental health, about counseling. I have had people in a function almost like a social worker. So I look at these things from an outsider's point of view, and I find it incredibly irresponsible that Eric is discouraging people from seeking professional therapy for their religious trauma. And I overheard this during one of the US Zoom meetings, and I was honestly shocked, because for me, reading the Bible or any other scripture or following any other faith for that matter, and going to therapy, it can go hand in hand. It should actually, you know, there's nothing wrong. And
yeah, well, Jesus himself said the sick need a physician. And Luke,
there you go.
yes, the Apostle Luke was a physician. So no doubt he would have helped Christians back then who were struggling mentally. Yeah, so yeah, good point. Very good point, Sonia.
Yeah, so I know this, and this step takes courage. You know, no one jumps up and joins. Yes, I'm going to therapy. Fantastic. No, it's a process. You have to find someone first of all. And I know I can only say from this country, Germany, I've done it for many clients when I was in you know, job coaching, career coaching, social coaching, especially the people who are down, really down. The last thing they want to do is make phone calls and ring up somewhere and, do you have an appointment for me? No. So I ended up trying to fix psychology, therapist appointments for other people, and now how hard even this first step can be. So yeah, it takes courage, but it can really help to rebuild your life after leaving an organization like Jehovah's Witnesses. And then the other thing that came to me is I heard from some members of Beroean Pickets about that case in Mexico involving a brother called Jonas. And Jonas took his own life after he was suffering from domestic abuse, which is unusual, but it does happen for a man to be abused, assaulted. And he faced a lack of support from Beroean Pickets. They didn't, and then on top of it, they accused him of something he didn't do. And these accusations, Eric repeated them in one of his videos after Jonas's death. So That
That's
is
right.
quite something.
Eric, yeah, that was done recently with your good self assisting with interpretation, and
Exactly.
Eric got all of his facts wrong. He only conveyed what what he wanted to say, and just like you've said, this actually puts another piece in the puzzle as to why Eric doesn't endorse people seeking help for religious trauma. Well, one of the reasons is because he causes it. I'm going to say it. I will be saying this. He's actually contributing to the religious trauma and doesn't take responsibility. But there you go. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, the interview with Claudia that you mentioned, I mean, she gave such a detailed account of the events that led up to her brother's suicide. And it was, for me, it was very painful to hear her plea for Eric to take down the video. Please take down, don't smear my brother's name. He can't defend himself any longer. And that is just one example of a troubling situation that has now come to light. Just one example. And
he hasn't taken the video down. He hasn't taken it down.
As I know, he hasn't. No.
What kind of person? All he's doing is exposing who he really is. Cruel, heartless, and very, very unloving. And above his, he puts his own pride and his own entitlement before even others' suffering. So, what does that tell you?
I can also see a parallel here to Watchtower, where abuse victims are also silenced and discouraged from seeking help, and they get cut off and wrongly accused of things just to find something that would justify their disfellowshipping or exclusion from a group or whatever. Yeah, and for me, sometimes when you're on the outside, you notice things that are so obvious, but they're not obvious to the people who are on the inside, if that makes sense. So I always find it quite striking that when we speak with Jehovah's Witnesses, or even ex-witnesses, actually, I mean, I've been speaking mostly to ex-witnesses nowadays. They say, when I was in the truth, when I was still in the truth, when I left the truth. So you have to take this. This is just brilliant marketing. Jehovah's Witnesses, they have monopolized two brands for themselves, like Jehovah and the truth. So there's like their assets, and they peddle these assets, and they have the exclusive ownership, so to speak. So it means that anyone who dares to leave this organization, it equals abandoning both Jehovah and abandoning the truth. And people even reflect that in the way they speak, even after they consciously decided, no, Jehovah's Witnesses are wrong, I'm going to leave the organization for A, B, C, D, Z, so many reasons. They still sometimes slip back into saying, oh, when I was still in the truth, or when I came into the truth. It's very hard to get rid of that automatism that connects the organization with these two. And I think along with the shunning and the fear of losing your entire social support network, that is a very cunning strategy to lock people in psychologically.
That's right. It's the indoctrination. It's the indoctrination, Sonia, just from personal experience. Honestly, now I'm out looking in after a year of leaving. I can say that I'm totally deprogrammed from the organization now. I'm totally deprogrammed. But coming out, it was horrific. It was horrific. Yeah. So thank you for your insights, my friend.
And then looking at Beroean Pickets, I feel Eric and Wendy, they do something a bit similar with the way they use the terms the children of God and Christian love. And I feel they make, if there's someone who disagrees or gets dispelled, I mean, whatever you call it, can no longer come to their meetings, or these people are made to feel like they're no longer part of God's family, and they're supposed to have a lack of Christian love. But if you challenge this, then they say, oh, you're prideful. It's your pride getting in the way. But I'm wondering, who are they to dictate where the Holy Spirit flows? And is Wendy, is she like a membership manager for the Children of God or something?
Oh, a good
For me, it's so
question.
obvious. They weaponize that fear to control, and they suggest that those people who are outside the group, who make a decision, no, I don't want this any longer, they're spiritually lost. And that plays with the fear of losing salvation. That is a core thing in religious trauma, is the fear. What
Yes.
maybe the group was right, what maybe now I'm going to hell, or whatever the equivalent is. I no longer have salvation, God will hate me, I'm lost, I have no hope, and all these things come into it. So it's always a big thing to leave a religious group of whatever type, and for them the branding is the Children of God, which is quite ironically, I mean, I had to ask Sabina several times, listen, this Children of God thing, to me it sounds a bit creepy. You know, there was this kind of cult, especially in the
Yeah.
US, that was called Children of
Yes.
God. It was
Of God.
really bad. And she said, no,
Yeah.
no, it's a term from the Bible. And I was like, okay, yes, I get it. Okay, good.
Right.
But
Yeah, but now you and I know, and everybody else who's been interviewed, that Beroean Pickets are a cult. They are just by the way they treat people. You know, we can't all be wrong. You know, if they're not a full 100% blown cult, they're very quickly becoming one. So,
yes.
was your mental health affected in any way then, Sonia?
Well, I mean, I had come along to the meeting thinking, it would be a positive, loving environment and just an opportunity to get to know new people, catch up with friends. And I mean, it was wonderful company. The vast majority of the people, I mean, I can really hardly think of, and maybe one exception, yeah, but the people were lovely, different people from different backgrounds, but everyone was easy to talk to, very welcoming, very inclusive. No one made me feel like a second-class person. I mean, none of the participants did. And for me, it would have been a very good opportunity to learn more about the Christian faith as well, in a very relaxed environment without any pressure. But what I saw in Beroean Pickets, and it was quite shocking, and it left a bad aftertaste. And it also made me realize that there's no place that's completely safe. Even when you think you're going to a place where there's going to be loving people, there can still be abusive folks, abusive people where you wouldn't expect them. Or maybe it's just that they enjoy starting their own religions. Maybe it's that. And it really worries me to think that good people could fall into that trap and get hurt again after they've been hurt in the witnesses. And so for me, because I'm introvert, when I'm in a group, it means I often get to observe and pick up on things that others might miss because they're so caught up in the conversations and so, right in the middle of it. And because I wasn't so deeply engaged in those topics, I could focus on body language and also spotting the underlying patterns in those interactions. And I have to say, because this was asked, so do you hate us? No, my answer is Wendy and Eric. No, I don't hate you, but I saw through you, and personally, I want nothing to do with you. That's it.
Well said. Well
That
done.
was belly feeling. I mean, I'm not claiming my belly feeling works all the time, or I'm listening to it all the time, but it was so strong. These people are not safe. I want nothing to do with them. I wish them all the best, but
Yeah.
stay away from me and from my friends. This is no good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Wonderful. Well done for saying it as you really feel, because this is what the audience, this is what viewers need to hear, so that you're actually giving them a voice. You might not realize this now, Sonia, but in 1 week's time, 2 weeks' time, 3 months' time, somebody will be watching this interview and you will be the person that they just needed to hear. So thank you so much for being honest and open. And I just wanted to ask you as well, because obviously your background is in health, you're a health coach. Just for the viewers, benefit, why do you think it's important to talk about mental health in the context of Beroean Pickets?
Well, I'm really passionate about holistic health, and I just care about people regardless of what faith they are, where they're from, etc. And so I thought I'd like to highlight a few things that definitely set off alarm bells for me. And I find it, I think I've mentioned it before, quite revealing how Eric Wilson, especially Eric, talks about issues of mental health affecting those who have just left Jehovah's Witnesses. And Eric does a good job debunking watchtowers, unbiblical doctrines and shunning and so on. But for me, that's just the tip of the iceberg, because beneath that surface, many, many ex-witnesses, they may be dealing with a wide range of religious trauma and abuse, and that could reflect in different mental health conditions. I mean, this is not science like, where you find something exact. It could be someone, if they do seek treatment, they get labeled as whatever, anxiety, depression, complex post-traumatic stress disorder and things like that. It could all be, or I've also read substance abuse is also quite common among people who leave religious groups. So it could be all sort of things. And obviously after those behaviors and the lack of awareness in Beroean Pickets, I find that alarming, because when you have a group of people, it doesn't mean you have to be a therapist. You have to help them directly dealing with anxiety. No, it doesn't mean that. But you have to be aware that people might be suffering, and they don't all run around with a flag and say, hi, I'm suicidal, I'm this, I'm that. No, because especially if you talk about mental health like that, they feel discouraged. They think, oh no, this is embarrassing, I got to shut up. I'm just not good enough. I have to pray harder,
Yeah, well, and also, the fact that, Eric, I don't know about Wendy, but Eric really negates the value of interventions, holistically and clinically. And for obvious reasons, we've already mentioned them. He's got no insight. The man's got no insight. He's got no empathy, and all the hallmarks of other personality types, which I won't say right now. But I just wanted to ask you: Do you feel that Wendy and Eric are aware of the potentially serious implications? I mean, I know what I feel in my head, but what about you, Sonia?
No, I don't think they are aware. I mean, Eric, especially, like you said, he's not the most empathetic person on the planet. Wendy might be more of someone who at least shows some kind of emotion, but you can never tell if it's, real, or if it's just random, or if it's used with a purpose. That's another matter. But no, I don't think they're aware. But also we have to bear in mind, when we think of abuse and things like that, we often picture severe cases, like horrible things like child sexual abuse or physical violence. But there are also less obvious forms of abuse, like, for instance, emotional and spiritual abuse. And they can be just as damaging, and especially they affecting people for a lifetime, and they don't even realize it. They don't know where that pain, where those chronic illnesses, where that discomfort or whatever it is, that failing at life, or where that comes from. If someone has been, I'm not saying, that's a good thing, but when you have been physically badly abused, you're usually aware of it, unless you have blocked it out and you've dissociated it. But usually you're aware of it. But those other things, we don't talk about them as often in society, so people are not aware what is emotional abuse or psychological abuse, or what is spiritual abuse like. What are the things that could be contributing to that? So that's a problem I see. And I've heard an interesting thing from someone who grew up in Jehovah's Witnesses. They went for a brain scan, and the doctor said, "We can see that you grew up in a cult. Your brain is different from other brains." So that was quite striking. And
Yes.
you can see it's even for those people who don't believe in things that are not scientific, and psychology, whatever is pseudoscience, there we go. It shows up in a brain scan. If you grew up in a cult, then your brain is differently wired.
Yes.
So
Well,
if maybe that's a reason to take it seriously then, for those people who are dismissive of psychology in general.
Well, and especially if it's evidence-based, people shouldn't ignore it, but actually do further research and reading on it. And
Yes.
especially people who, in Eric and Wendy's positions of leaders, and people that are supposed to be encouraging people to come to Christ, they should have all the hallmarks of the Holy Spirit. We won't go into them here, but one of them is patience. Okay, if somebody's exhibiting these trauma-based behaviors, this isn't, or mental illness, even if somebody's triggered, this isn't an
Yes.
excuse for them to wipe the floor with them and make fun of them sarcastically, like they have been doing on their channel. And I know they've had a pop at my predicament. They're just, for me personally, I just feel sorry for them, because people are more educated than ever now around these issues, and they're just making themselves look like fools, because they don't have the hallmarks, as far as I'm concerned. They don't have the hallmarks of what it takes to be a Christian. Yes, as you pointed out, he's very knowledgeable, he's very intellectual. Jesus never used intellectual language. He was very basic, he was very simple. He spoke to simple people. But Eric thinks that the tables need to be turned in the 21st century. I don't know why. He like you said, he always likes to be right, and he always likes to feel that he is an authority on something. But everybody's starting to see through these two, and we know what they're about now anyway. Go ahead, sorry.
Well, people are different, I think to some degree, some people are more rationally minded, some people are more emotional. That's all part of a natural variety, and God hasn't all made us the same. Some people are introverts like myself, some people are more extroverts. So that's all the spice of life, I would say. That's normal. But when it comes to these things, that you don't even need a Christian philosophy to say, okay, that's unprofessional. If you bring together a group of people and there is potential problems of that type, then no, you don't have to be a therapist, and that's fine. But part of intelligence is also to know what you don't know. So if you realize I'm not competent in this area, then what can I do? I can be nice to the person, but I acknowledge my limits, and or even express that I'm shocked to hear what you just told me, but I wish I could help, but I probably don't even understand what you're going through. But I love you. You're a lovely, brother and sister, etc. But can we do anything to get you help, or something like that? Acknowledge you can't help, but suggest it's okay to get help, and it might benefit the person, and you're telling them not to say, you're stupid, you're nuts, you need to go and see a shrink. No, you say, I care for you, I see you're suffering, and I want you to get well. That's it.
Yes. You've kind of, you've gone into the next point I wanted to ask you very, very nicely. But I was just going to say, everything you're saying is spot on. But you see, Sonia, when there's an absence of empathy and compassion, when there's an absence of those two components, you're going to see the flip side of somebody's behavior. In the case of Eric and Wendy, you're not going to see that. You and I are wired completely differently to people like these two, because that's what you would default to. That's your default setting, empathy and compassion. Other people's default setting is, some people with certain personality types, they don't know how to cope with people struggling, but they're also not very nice about it. And this is what we're seeing. So you have gone nicely into the next point, but I'll go further into this. So I'll just skip to this is about the 10th point now, but why should we, so just listening to you, why should we look at mental health in a more compassionate and holistic way?
I wanted to add one more thing, Karen, before we address that point. Yeah, like I said, sometimes you can't relate or you can't emotionally, you just don't have the personality type or the professional ability to help someone, and that's fine. But you must not add to their pain. So if you know that someone is vulnerable, if you know that someone has made a suicide attempt, what do? We all know what happened, yeah, to Jonas after his first suicide attempt. That's not what you do. Even Jehovah's Witnesses have rules and regulations in their whatever shepherding handbook, how to proceed if someone has, I mean, sad to think about it, but they have rules and regulations. What happens if someone made a suicide attempt?
Yeah. Well,
Essentially,
Eric doesn't have a handbook.
dial back a little bit on the shunning.
And Eric just tells you to forget about it and move forward, like he did with Ruth. So
yeah,
there's no handbook
so, I mean,
in Eric's world. Yeah, sorry. So yeah, if you want to comment on
this dismissing mental health, I mean, I wonder, Wendy and Eric, if you're confident that you didn't suffer any psychological harm when you were in Jehovah's Witnesses, you might find it actually just hard with those who are struggling, you know. But then you must realize we cannot have empathy, or we just have no idea what these people, or you're in complete cognitive dissonance. You have also been harmed, but you're too whatever to even acknowledge that something might have hurt you as well. Maybe it's that, I don't know. But in any case, if you're confident that you didn't suffer any harm, then don't tell other people what's going on with them. These people know for themselves how they feel and what's going on. They are the best experts, and if they want to go seek help, then don't stop them. The same thing goes for things like regarding the shunning, right? If you don't have children or grandchildren yourself, my question is, can you empathize with someone who is being shunned and who can't see their children or their grandchildren? Can you?
No.
Maybe you can, maybe you can't. But in the case of Eric and Wendy, I see that there is a lack of empathy. And, you know, I mean, Jonas, the poor man, he was being banned from seeing his youngest child. And can you even understand the pain of that when you, as an ex-witness, you haven't really ever been affected by shunning? So anyway, it's unrealistic to expect anyone to have experienced everything that others go through. I mean, that goes without saying, but just if you struggle with empathy, yeah, then just acknowledge your limits and encourage people to seek help rather than discouraging them. That's all I have to say. And it's wonderful to have this community of like-minded peers. That's crucial. But some people also need professional help to fully recover. And they shouldn't be stigmatized for acknowledging that need. That brings us to the next, to the next point, really. So how should we look at mental health, or, you know, what you said? Can you say?
Well, how we should. I mean, you have covered it really well in, why should we look at mental health in a more compassionate and holistic way? You've covered that really, really well, Sonia. So if I may, and I just think I agree and concur with you as well. Know your limits, but you don't. But you see, we're dealing with people that don't want to show empathy. It's considered a weakness in some personality types to show empathy. So I just wanted to ask you, in point 11, actually, have you found any statistics about ex-witnesses and mental health? And can you tell me about that? I know you're a very thorough person, so you'll have some information here. Would you like to just explain what you found?
Yes, yes, I would like to share some findings from a study that was conducted by Zurich University on ex-Jehovah's Witnesses in German-speaking countries. And in this research, they compared experiences of former members with those of the general population. And, well, they brought up some alarming statistics. And so ex-witnesses, they are 3 times more likely to have faced physical or sexual abuse during childhood. Ex-witnesses are 6 times more likely to have experienced emotional abuse or neglect. That's one of those types of abuse that is often unrecognized because it's what was not done to someone rather than something bad happened, you know. That's why it's often people are not aware of it.
Exactly.
1 in 3 ex-witnesses surveyed reported having suicidal thoughts after leaving the Watchtower organization. And 1 in 10 even went so far as to attempt suicide. And 77% of ex-witnesses said they experienced shunning.
That's insane. That's it is staggering. It is phenomenal. But I don't disbelieve this. I believe everything that you've just read here. Yes.
I mean,
so,
it's just one study, but if you take those percentages and apply it to something that we all know, I mean, let's say for argument's sake, Beroean Pickets, the US group, let's say they have around 200 members, right? Everyone knows that Zoom group. For that number of people, it would mean around 60 to 70 of these people may have had suicidal thoughts. And up to 20 of them may have even attempted suicide already. And about 150 of those brothers and sisters may be affected by shunning. And we personally know of one suicide, Jonas.
yes.
And I heard from someone that Wendy once said she knew of 5 suicides amongst Jehovah's Witnesses, not necessarily the expert Jehovah's Witnesses, that people that she knew who took their own life.
Right.
So there should be an awareness that within the people that you are taking care of, that you regularly see, there is a lot of hidden potential for people who are not well. And what the study also found is that even after 13 years later, the rate of mental health issues was 1/3 higher among the ex-witnesses compared to the control group. And chronic illnesses were up by 40%. So overall, ex-witnesses, they had a lower quality of life and higher levels of stress.
Yes, it doesn't surprise me. It just does not surprise me. So just on the same theme with mental illness here and talking about Beroean Pickets, did you see Eric's comment under his own video where he talks about bipolar?
Yes.
Okay. Your comments, please.
Eric, I have to say, your comment on your own YouTube video that you shot yourself in the foot, I think. Because as someone who is educated, very educated, I should say, you should know, or at least you should be open to learning that bipolar disorder and borderline personality disorder, they're fundamentally different. And it's important to use these terms thoughtfully and accurately instead of just tossing them around without a clear understanding. And, you know, I don't have to even, you know, look into AI to see that what you wrote, the strategy that you're suggesting for dealing with someone who has bipolar disorder, that's exactly how psychologists recommend handling individuals of the dark triad personality traits. There's something completely different. It's quite ironic, isn't it? Because those with the dark triad traits, they are the least likely ones to ever seek psychological help. They don't go and see a psychologist. They just carry on in society. They love their manipulation, their exploitation, and they don't really, they don't give a, they show little regard for others. Let's put it this way. So unfortunately, these people, they rise to very high up positions in society and even within religious organizations.
Right. Yes, and the dark triad is very, very apt bringing that in, because the three components are antisocial personality disorder. They're all personality disorders. Narcissism. I'm not sure if Machiavellianism is actually in the DSM-5 or the ICD-10, but certainly, yeah, certainly it is part of, you know, the narcissistic personality disorder. They dovetail very, very nicely. And of course, when you're comparing it to a mood disorder like bipolar, there is no comparison. You cannot go to the doctors and get a tablet or a pill for a personality disorder, but you can go to the doctors for a pill for bipolar, for a mood disorder. Yeah, and again, I'm not just saying this because I have suffered and had a diagnosis of it myself, but bipolar people, sufferers, are the least of the mental illnesses to have a personality disorder, and if they did, the personality disorder would be the primary diagnosis. The bipolar disorder would be sitting under that, or comorbid diagnosis with it. Yeah, so Eric, as you've said, he shot himself in the foot, and he's just showing himself up to be a fool, to be honest. And I liked your research on the dark triad as well. You are right. Those people don't think they're the problem. They think everybody else is the problem. That's why they go undetected. That's why they don't go and seek help, because everybody else is the problem. Okay, so then on that note, what do you think are the key challenges individuals face when coming out of a controlling group like Watchtower? And how can they best support each other during the healing process, Sonia?
Well, I think, first of all, people are very vulnerable after leaving a cult like Watchtower, and they really deserve a safe space where they can grow together, make new connections, and heal, and not a repeat of the abuse. And yes, I get it. You may have left Watchtower because you doubt their teachings. You know, you suddenly found that thing and the light bulb went off and you're like, no, oh no, we shouldn't do this. And the Bible says the exact opposite. And thankfully, I've now realized this is all wrong. And then, you know, I as I've heard from my friends, you classically read a few books like Raymond Franz and Eric Wilson and whatnot, and then you are confirmed in your newfound discovery. Yes, Jehovah's Witnesses got it wrong. It wasn't the truth, so it's okay to leave. But that's just one thing. So if you focus too much on just those beliefs and how they were wrong, and then the next thing is, okay, now if I'm out and I'm being shunned, perhaps, then I'm being alone. What now? It's very easy to end up in another controlling group, as long as this group promises company and the group promises to have the right teachings. Then you're game, you're in again. And maybe it can start all over again. So that's why I think it's so important to recognize also the psychological impact of what you experienced. And maybe even learning about people who've left other cults could be helpful for you to understand what makes all of those high control groups so harmful. What exactly are those patterns? And because if you don't become aware of the patterns, then you can easily fall into another similar trap without even realizing before it's too late. And that doesn't mean you're not intelligent. All it means is your instincts haven't been fully developed. Or, you know, simply because these groups, they use very skilled techniques of manipulation, of gaslighting, of guilt tripping, of, you know, emotional manipulation. That's nothing to do with how intelligent you are. And also bear in mind, when you were in the witnesses, you learn to get along with everyone inside. Like, all witnesses are my best friends, you know, we are all brothers and sisters. This is this kind of forced love, which is nice, but it means you have to switch off your gut feelings immediately, all the time. So your gut feelings, your intuition is cut off because the rule is overriding it. The rule is, I love all my brothers and sisters, they're all fantastic. And so, yeah, your instincts are not working. And so this worked within a close group like the witnesses, but now you're in the outside world. And I forgot to say, remember also even things like major decisions like picking a career, if you were allowed any, or picking your spouse. That wasn't up to you or your gut feeling. It was influenced by Watchtower's teaching and by what your family said and what other respectable people in the community had to say about it. And now you're out of this, you're in the free world, and there's this challenge of figuring things out on your own. And you might, for a long time swing between being very trusting on one hand and then overly paranoid in another matter, simply because it doesn't feel natural to follow that gut feeling, to be responsible for your decisions as well. And breaking free from that black-white thinking, that must take time as well. It surely takes time, and I've seen in literally everyone, like I mentioned, Sabina is my best case study for it. But I think she has come a long way in shedding off that black and white thinking.
Yeah, she's awesome, and we all love her very, very much. So thank you for your insights, Sonia. So then, what advice? So say somebody is watching this and they ask the question, how do you know if you're in a high control group? Right, how would you answer that?
Good question. Well, I think just ask yourself, what would actually happen if you question something? If you voice your doubts, or if you notice, oh, my emotions are different, and you dare to speak up about your emotions, what happens? What if maybe I can't donate or volunteer as much anymore as I used to? What happens then? If the response is silence, ridicule, punishment, or being shunned, or any of these things, that is a red flag. And I mean, it's natural to question things. In a healthy group, they will let you ask questions, and they won't cut you off or demonize you just for asking the wrong questions. And so if you can trust your instincts and take your time to heal after that betrayal, because you've been betrayed once, and unfortunately what that means, that can be a traumatic experience. There's something called betrayal trauma in psychology. People also have that when they've been betrayed in their marriage or something like that, some kind of major betrayal. So it leaves traces on your psyche. And the danger is, if you're in another group and there's even the slightest sign of maybe I'm being betrayed again, there is also a reaction for you to shut down and ignore it, because it makes you feel uncomfortable. And you're like, no, but don't take away my new toy. I found this beautiful group now, and this is now my new truth. So let's hold on to it. Don't shatter my illusions. Don't tell me this one is also not the truth. Yeah, that's how trauma can work as well. So quite tricky.
Very, very tricky, because a lot of people leaving the Watchtower they think their troubles are over leaving it, but actually, unless they get the proper interventions, their troubles are only just beginning. And of course, jumping into another group, another Bible group, like Beroean Pickets, other Bible study groups, that what I found personally was that I'll never fault Eric for breaking down Watchtower doctrine and proving it wrong, but it's all downhill after that. So you're just helping others to see that from a non-witness perspective, and helping people to capture their feelings and their thoughts before they make that decision, because they're still processing and working with the cognitive dissonance and coming to fruition with that. It's a tough thing. It's really tough. So then, you've given some excellent advice so far, Sonia. So what do you feel people should do if they have mental health concerns after leaving the Watchtower? Have you got some steps that they could consider?
Well, I'm repeating myself, but I would say if you can seek therapy with a mental health professional, and ideally someone who specializes in religious trauma, or at least has some understanding for it. I mean, meanwhile, even some ex-witnesses have themselves gone through qualification in order to help other people who've come out of Jehovah's Witnesses or other cults included, because they realize how big a problem it is, and they're still lovely people, so they still want to help people, but now they're putting those lovely qualities to a new, using them in a new context, which is fantastic. So maybe as a suggestion, Karen, for the future, maybe we can compile something of resources, and also I am aware in my country we're very lucky. We can go to we've got health insurance, so you go to your doctor and you talk to them, and then they can refer you out to psychotherapy. And apart from maybe having to wait a few weeks or months, it won't cost you anything. So it's covered on health insurance. Now that's a different matter for US or Canada or many other countries where the health system functions in a different way, and I appreciate that. But nevertheless, some providers have social rates for people who aren't financially very who might not be able to afford the regular rates. And also there is meanwhile so many resources out there on the internet, and maybe that's why I said maybe we can link something, so people, even if they can't go to a therapy themselves at the moment, they still have resources that they can listen to that will give them some kind of validation of what they're going through, and see, I'm not the only one, and there's light at the end of the tunnel, and this is what's happening with you. I mean, that's been invaluable already for many people to realize, to, uncover a little bit the pattern behind it and demystify.
Yes.
And one thing you've already done, the people who listen, I'm pretty sure you have connected with others who've been through similar experiences, and that's very important. There's even something I learned in my, when I did my health coaching qualification, we learned about something called, I believe it's called re-evaluation counseling or co-counseling. And
Right.
it's literally the idea that non-qualified people who have gone through some kind of mental health issue, they sit together and they talk to each other. So it's mainly a very active way of listening, and just giving the other person space to just to get it off their chest, whatever is bothering them. So that could be
So a bit like a peer group.
Peer counseling group.
We have a lot of peer groups over here with I'll be honest with you, religious trauma qualifications and counsellors are as rare as hen's teeth over here. What tends to happen, I actually did a unit on religious trauma last year. I did an online unit, to add to my mental health experience. But just very quickly, what happens is somebody will be struggling with religious trauma. They'll get sent to the GP, who's not qualified in mental health or anything religiously inclined, and they'll just feed that person to a counsellor. And I'm not saying that the counsellor is not good at what they do, but if they haven't got a qualification or an understanding or an experience in a religious trauma based area, then they could actually exacerbate the
it's a double stigma
problem. Yes, exactly.
You're stigmatized in the religious group for having mental health issues. Then you go to the mental health professional, you're stigmatized for being as stupid as having been in a cult.
Exactly.
No,
and you just get passed on for anxiety or something like that, when actually it's way worse. Anxiety is only one part of the component of religious trauma, as you and I know. But look, I just wanted to thank you. And I know you had a Bible verse, didn't you, that you wanted to share as we finish up the interview, where is it first do you want to just explain that? I think that's lovely to finish on.
Yes, okay. Well, first of all, last but not least, I forgot one thing also. For me, that's a bit of a personal advice, because I haven't been in a cult, but I've had therapy myself at some point, and one of the things I've found, I mentioned I'm a people pleaser, or I have been a people pleaser, and one thing I found very hard was setting boundaries. And I think
Yeah.
that's a topic as well for people who come out of an organization like Watchtower, because you were trained to be nice and loving and to be this perfect Christian and have all these wonderful virtues. You don't think in terms of, oh, no, sorry, I don't do this. I can't do this. I'm sorry, but no, that's not necessarily trained to others, basically. So please learn about boundaries. And if you don't, like myself, if you don't know what boundaries are, I know this sounds ridiculous, but I didn't really know what they were. Then start learning about it, because it will be helpful. You will need, in the free world, you need to set boundaries with people and also with groups of people. And
Yes.
lastly, I mean, don't just take my word for it or anyone else's word. Always do your own research before joining or leaving a group or making any big decisions, anything drastic. Do your own research. Don't just go by one person said this and then you jump ship and you do this or that. No. And
No.
there's a wonderful in the Bible, it says, this is in First Thessalonians 5:21. Test all things, hold fast what is good.
Excellent.
I think that really sums it up, you know, on your
Yeah.
journey. Just keep the good stuff. And it's a journey. So if you've come this far, you will find your way. Just, you know, keep up. Don't give
Yeah.
up, keep up. And Karen, I can only say thank you for being so brave, for initiating, for starting to do these videos and giving a platform to all those people who were shut down and shamed for speaking out about Beroean Pickets, or who had, you know, various difficult experiences. And it's never easy to talk about these things, and especially if you're people pleaser, as some of us, most of us maybe are. It
Right.
feels very uncomfortable to get these things out. It doesn't feel good, but sometimes you have to do the uncomfortable thing because it's the right thing to do. And I've met so many wonderful people in this community of ex-witnesses, and yeah, you just want to hug them. You want them to be well, you know, even though we might not be
Yeah.
on the same spiritual journey, we can still walk a little bit together. We can still be friends. Yes, this is a new thing. You can be friends with someone who doesn't share your same faith. Why not?
Exactly. This is it.
Yes.
This is all about, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus hung out with, you know, tax collectors and the Amharites, you know, the low life that the Pharisees considered, you know, discards people. Jesus hung out with all of those people who didn't necessarily listen to what he had to say. So, you know, we
Yeah.
can all take a leaf out of his book. But I just want to take this opportunity, Sonia. I feel like I've gotten to know you a little bit more today, and you're an amazing human being. And I am so glad that I've had the opportunity and the privilege to have you come into my life through some very negative things that we've had to deal with, as you've said. But you're an amazing person, and I've actually learned quite a lot from you. You're very methodical, very comprehensive, very thorough. I used to think I was, but I've met my match. And please don't lose that. It's an amazing gift, and I just want to say thank you for joining me on the channel and giving your perspective and insights, not just on, you know, on knowing Beroean Pickets from an outsider's perspective, but also as a trained holistic coach, you know, giving your professional, you know, opinions and advice to people who may be looking and may be listening to you, and you provide just what they need to hear. So I think as well, further down the track, you know, if we all get together and, you know, get some resources going and get them up online, we can all work together and really make a contribution to people that are leading the organisation or are looking for answers and don't want to get burnt again. So on that note, I would just like to thank you, Sonia. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Karen, for having me, and to everyone who's listened and made it this far. I wish every one of you all the best on your life journey, and yeah, you're loved.
Oh, and we love you too.
Free,
So,
and you're free.
and
Free
you're
and
free,
loved.
exactly. Thank you so much, Sonia. That's amazing. All right. Well, that's it, my friends. People watching in. I hope you're really going to enjoy this interview. And as I always finish by saying, wherever you are, look after each other, take care of one another, always be forgiving, know your limits, and set your boundaries. Okay. Until next time. Bye.